Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome into a Friday, May 1st edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by the great Gabe Swartz as we put you into the weekend. And Gabe, it's a Friday. It's May 1st. It's beautiful out there. We think it's baseball season, but you know what? We have some football to talk about today.
Yeah.
How excited are you that, Royals haven't been playing that great? Thank God we have some football to talk about.
We've got a lot to talk about, given that it is early May and we're slowly approaching the summer months of not as much going on for the most part, but there's plenty going on today. Football kept Neil Jones busy out there at the Chiefs facility today for sure.
Hey, Neil Jones is always busy. That's why he's the great Neil Jones, always keeping his ear to the streets, tracking down the latest stories. But I think today a lot of Chiefs fans were excited because it was the first time that they got to see and hear Mansour Delane in a Chiefs uniform. He was obviously the first defensive back picked at this year's NFL draft. The Chiefs trading 3 picks to move up 3 spots to get him, moving from number 9 up to number 6. Now, Delane, kind of regarded as the number 1 corner in this year's draft. He's wearing number 5, a single digit for a corner. Gabe, Mansour's really tasked, big shoes to fill. He's got to kind of replace Trent McDuffie, and the Chiefs don't necessarily have a lot of starting caliber cornerbacks just on their roster with kind of how a lot of good players have left, and they traded Trent McDuffie. So Delane, very confident. He's shown a lot of pizzazz. I think fans are kind of energized after they see him kind of talk and speak. You saw him, I guess, speak on draft night and then obviously speak today. What are your kind of early impressions there of number 5?
Well, the thing that stood out to me that he talked about that I think caught a lot of people's attention was him admitting to people, hey, I grew up a Raiders fan. And honestly, I think being like, you know what, the Raiders got a lot of losses from the Chiefs, so I'm glad to be on this side of things now. I'm sure that ingratiates him into the Chiefs fan base at this point. Marlia and I talked about this yesterday, just of how big of shoes he has to fill, the responsibility that he's going to have in that cornerback room. But I think that there are a lot of similarities between this defensive backs room and the defensive backs room that existed for the Chiefs in 2022, outside of maybe not having the same veteran leadership of a Justin Reed at safety and on the back end. But
what about L'Jarius Sneed?
But L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, in 2022 he was solid, but he was still a much younger player in the NFL at that point. And I think that you could argue the Noel Williams season that he had last year. Whether Noel Williams likes it or not, he's also going to be a guy who I'm sure that Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo are going to expect a lot out of, because he's not going to have to be taught everything new in the same way that Jaden Kennedy and Mansour Delane and even Alohi Gilman, who signed as a free agent this offseason, are going to. There's just a lot that's going to be asked of these guys, and I think rookie minicamp is the start of the season. Today's the first day that we see anybody in a Chiefs uniform for the 2026 season, and that is one of the position groups that will play a critical role in terms of how good can this team be and whether they can bounce back from going 6-11 last year.
Yeah, I think this DB room is one of the biggest question marks on the entire Chiefs roster heading into 2026, just because you see the names that have left, and you also see the goals that the team has going into this season. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes a little bit on the shelf, dealing with that ACL tear, coming back from that, attacking his rehab, doing everything he can. But when Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, the dreams and the aspirations and the focus of your front office and the other players on your roster are always going to be winning a championship. And obviously, that's something the Chiefs want to do this year, but that is something that could completely come into question just because of the guys right now that they have defending the pass. Like, look at their DB room right now. I think it's Mansour Delane, there's Christian Fulton, there's Jaden Kennedy, another rookie. Who else is there? There's
Noel Williams.
There's Noel Williams.
And then you have
Cater Coho, the guy they signed from the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Chamari Connor, I believe, there. Chris Roland Wallace. Am I leaving anybody out there?
I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but that is mostly the defensive backs room. They also signed a couple undrafted free agents who had solid seasons. Xavier Wankpa at Iowa, who a lot of people said had a great season. Brad Stevens is thrilled that they got a Nebraska Cornhusker in the secondary as an undrafted free agent. There are different options, but it's just a matter of seeing whether Dave Merritt and them can do their magic and make things work. They made it work a couple years ago. Jalen Watson was a 7th-round pick. Josh Williams was a late-round pick. Those guys had huge rookie seasons to make that season happen. So we'll see if they can do it again.
Yeah, the Chiefs definitely have shown an ability to kind of create and develop some defensive backs, and I thought that was actually a pretty interesting comment from Mansour Delane today. He kind of talked about how the Chiefs are a DB factory, but a lot of guys that do come here to be defensive backs, cornerbacks, they don't stay here very long. I think that's kind of an interesting comment to hear from a guy who, I don't know if he signed his rookie contract. Obviously, he's going to be getting a lot of guaranteed money, but it sounds like, hey, his agent said, hey, yeah, you might have been drafted here, but just looking at the way that the Chiefs have operated, this might not be a place where you finish your career. So, Gabe, I guess when you kind of hear a rookie on literally day one of minicamp say that the DBs don't necessarily stay here, is that do you think that's a red flag, or do you think that's a little bit, hey, I'm just kind of looking at how the situation has played out here in Kansas City, and a lot of these guys that come here, like a L'Jarius Sneed, like a Trent McDuffie, like a Jalen Watson, don't necessarily stay here in Kansas City.
Yeah. I'm going to glass half full Gabe. I'm going to spin zone this as a positive, that this means that Mansour Delane is a ball knower. He's just very aware of what has happened with his job as he becomes a new employee with the Chiefs. And he didn't say, I don't think that that's the right thing, or I don't think that should be the case. I think that between his comments, between the comments that Brett Veach made on draft night and the comments that the rest of the Chiefs player personnel people made about Delane and his ability to, in their eyes, play inside and outside, which it seemed like Trent McDuffie was, for all of his greatness, was kind of unwilling to play defensively on the inside outside of his best season in 2023. He just preferred not to play in that spot. He didn't want to be a slot cornerback. And that's his choice, and that's probably a choice that he made that resulted in him ending up going to Los Angeles at this point. But I think you can look at other guys who have left, and there's perfectly understandable reasons for why they're gone. The Chiefs were okay with L'Jarius Sneed leaving. Clearly they thought his knee was not in a great spot, and his time in Kansas City was up. And I'm sure Tennessee Titans fans would say, we got him. We got a guy who...
an expensive player, not a lot of production.
Exactly. At that point, it didn't make sense. Tyrann Mathieu, you can say thank you for your time in Kansas City. He probably left at the right time if you're from the Chiefs' perspective. Justin Reed, I guess you could debate the merits of if they moved on maybe too quick. But if you're going to go by the adopt maybe the Bill Belichick New England Patriots mentality of, we would rather move on a year too early than a year too late from a guy. They've been a year too early, or they've been on time, I guess, is what I'm saying, more often than they've been too early on someone. And if anything, I wouldn't say that they missed out on Justin Reed's actual production last year from the Saints. They just missed out on the fact that Jaden Hicks didn't come to be the guy that they thought that he was going to be, and Brian Cook wasn't Justin Reed. So that's something else. But Delane admitting that, I just thought that was just like, you know what? He's very aware of what the Chiefs have been doing. And honestly, that's kind of what I start to expect from, if you like football and you have grown up and all your experience as a high schooler and a guy in college is the Chiefs contending for Super Bowls, you're going to be hyper aware of what this organization has kind of been like. Just even if you're not living in this area, I think that that's kind of the thing that the Chiefs have, that the spotlight's so far on them. A lot of these guys that they get in the building are just going to know a lot about them, even from being on the edges of it.
And as you mentioned earlier, with Delane being a Raiders fan growing up, I kind of thought it was funny when he was talking in his press conference. He was like, "Hey, growing up as a Raiders fan, he's like, we never really could get past the Chiefs to get into the playoffs." I was like, "You guys weren't." In my head, like, the Raiders haven't been close to the playoffs in a long time. Like, there are a lot of other teams that they needed to beat to maybe be knocking on that door. But obviously now Mansour on the correct side of that rivalry, and we'll see how that all plays out. No, another guy that Chiefs fans and the media got to hear from today in Kansas City for the first time was probably the projected third-string quarterback on this team, former LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. Now, to me, this is a guy that it's one of the most intriguing storylines for the Chiefs this offseason, because you have to look at this kind of where the Chiefs are. Do the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes for the offseason? No. Who do they have? They have Justin Fields, a former first-round pick, and then obviously Garrett Nussmeier, a guy who entered his senior season as a projected first-round pick and then didn't play that well this year, was injured, dealt with some of that stuff, and then slid to the 7th round of the draft, which I don't think necessarily anyone expected. But one of the reasons I think this is such an important position on the team is there is a very high probability that the starting quarterback in week 1 this year is going to be Justin Fields. Now, what's Justin Fields' greatest strength? I would probably say at the NFL level is definitely not being a pocket passer. It's his ability to move. And when your quarterback obviously becomes a running threat, obviously you kind of have a built-in injury component that you got to worry with there, because the guys in the NFL, I mean, these defensive ends, these linebackers, these guys that are going to hit the quarterback, they're going to hit you hard. I know there are rules to protect the quarterback, but anytime you're a mobile quarterback, I'm sure that gives organizations, that gives coaches a lot of kind of room to step back and pause, because that player can get injured. So that makes Garrett Nussmeier a very, very valuable of the Chiefs organization until Patrick Mahomes is able to play, because there's a chance if Justin Fields gets lit up week 1, week 2, and Mahomes is not ready, all of a sudden Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback for a team with Super Bowl championship aspirations. Now, Gabe, Nussmeier played 5 years at LSU. His dad, I believe, is the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. So this is a guy that's kind of grown up with the football pedigree. He knows what it looks like at the NFL level, and he knows what's to be expected of him. Hearing him kind of speak at the podium today, to me at least, it looked like he was a guy that, he can talk the talk. We'll see if he can walk the walk. But at least day one, early impression, that's a guy that's a quarterback and a guy that can lead the room. What do you think about Nussmeier here in Kansas City?
Yeah, I think your point of if Patrick Mahomes is not ready for week 1 and the risk of just the play style that Justin Fields has and the fact that his legs have to be used for him to be valuable or to maximize his value, it is just – from a short term, it's a good bet in that regard, and from a long term perspective of the Chiefs, of if you can develop a guy and turn a 7th round pick into a trade asset later when his rookie contract is nearing its expiration, and if he becomes a guy who you can turn into something else, that's a big time win for any. If you can make anything productive out of a 7th round pick, yes, the Chiefs have had success picking in the 7th round at times. Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, those guys, they've had really productive seasons. And quarterback versus a player on the roster is very different. But if you can do anything, it's still a little bit of a dart throw in the 7th round. I would say, to the point of Garrett Nussmeier and his understanding of the backup quarterback role, I said this yesterday, he was working under and being the backup quarterback for multiple seasons under Jaden Daniels while he was at LSU. He is just more equipped and more comfortable being a backup, whereas a lot of these guys who are in the NFL at this point, now that we're so deep in this transfer portal era of college football, they are not necessarily sitting around at schools waiting for their turn. It's more of, hey, if I have 1 year where I'm not playing, I am out of here and I am finding a new place to play. And if that one doesn't work, or if there's more money available for me, more NIL money at some other school, I'll just keep looking for another school and I'll keep hopping around to different places. It's not a commentary on whether that's good or bad, but Garrett Nussmeier didn't do that. He stayed at one place, so he's comfortable as a backup. He also, if there are college football programs that have the spotlight of kind of an NFL level on them, LSU is one of those programs. So being the face of that program, at least for one season as the quarterback in 2024, and then 2025 when things didn't go necessarily as well, I just think that between that and his dad, he's going to be pretty comfortable in that environment and in front of a microphone and talking to reporters and understanding everything that's being asked of him. So that's what stands out to me after hearing him talk today, is just that this feels like a role and a sporting environment that he's expected to understand.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think him being a backup quarterback in college, just as you said to Jaden Daniels, I think that is such a great point, because just exactly as you said, think about how many of these guys, maybe they play at a lower level Division I school, they kind of bounce around, and they were a 4-year starter, but they never were a backup quarterback, and then in NCAAs to a good quarterback, with the kind of knowing like, hey, I'm not going to be getting the reps. I'm not going to be getting the snaps, but I have got to stay mentally ready potentially to play, but then also just to kind of help the quarterback out. And I think obviously that's something that he's done and something that he's kind of been groomed for his whole life. And I think there's a big argument to be said that the Chiefs have one of the most intriguing and good options as their number 3 emergency quarterback here in the National Football League this year with Garrett Nussmeier. And just he's a guy that we're going to see throw the football a lot here in rookie minicamp, at OTAs, and in training camp, just because of the physical situation surrounding quarterback Patrick Mahomes. So excited to see what kind of Andy Reid can do here. We know every once in a while he kind of tries to find like a QB with high upside and see kind of how he can kind of maybe extract some of his strengths out. Garrett Nussmeier is certainly a guy going into this, at this time last year, Garrett Nussmeier is a guy a lot of people in the college football world thought was going to be the first quarterback taken off the board. So with the Chiefs getting him as a 7th round pick, I mean, this is good news for Kansas City. But today was not the final day of rookie minicamp. They're going to be out there tomorrow. We're going to have Neil Jones and Katie Marr out there tomorrow, and we will recap that tomorrow on our over-the-air show, KC Sports Tonight, at 10:35. But we have about 14 more minutes left. Going to talk about 3 more topics. The first one, the Kansas City Royals. And Gabe, forgive me if I sound like a broken record, but boy, it's just, are the Royals maybe heading into another funk? Right now, I believe they are 12-19 after a series loss at the Sacramento A's. Tonight, they go on the road for a 3-game set at the Seattle Mariners. Ace Cole Reagans is on the mound tonight, but he's 1-4 and has a 5.00 ERA this year. Now, Gabe, I just wanted to I didn't want to get too deep into the nitty-gritty of baseball, because I know there's a lot of stats in baseball that can kind of make some fans not really that interested in the game. But I looked up Royals runs scored, so their total offense, and then ERA. I guess we can say that's kind of their pitching and defense combined, are just the results that the other teams have when they're at the plate. So the Royals, I believe, ranked 24th or 23rd in total offense and 24th in ERA. And right now they stand at 12-19, obviously not in the playoff picture. Long way to say this. I know you're a big Royals fan. Do you have any faith that they can turn it around, or is this simply a team that struggles offensively and struggles pitching-wise? Because I think at this point in the season, we're into May, it's been quite a sample size. This team has not been good this year.
Well, yes, I don't think everything is doom and gloom, mostly because I don't think that the AL Central is good. And that is just the matter of fact, is the reason that they still have a chance. They have not played good baseball at this point. They have not been a good baseball team. No one would confuse them for that. No one is confused by the disguise of a 4-game winning streak of, oh, maybe this is a really good team. No, they still have their flaws, and they still have things that the question marks surround them of whether they can do things consistently positively. But with that said, they have a chance just because the AL Central is bad. And the rest of the division, or the rest of the divisions in Major League Baseball, I looked earlier this week when the Royals were down to 2.5 games back in the AL Central, and despite their record being, at the time, I think it was 12-17. I think now it's 12-18 or 12-19. At the time, they would have still been 6.5 games or worse out of first place in every other division in baseball. And I think they go into tonight at 3.5 games back. So they're still within range. And once they get through this Mariners series, they come home and they get the Tigers and they get the Guardians at home. And for as bad as that road trip was to Detroit and New York last week, if you have a great week at home, and they've been a really good team, the one thing you can say about the Royals is they've been really good at home this year. If they can do that against divisional opponents, they're right back in things. So they're not out of it. Reagan's has been a disappointment this year. The record has not been great. The ERA has not been great.
The walks have not been great.
The walks have not been great for the Royals pitching staff in general. They've walked a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But with that being said, glass half full Gabe appears again.
He's back.
I would say Reagan's was awesome last Saturday night against the Angels. Struck out in the double digits. He had a great a shutdown outing, and the offense finally gave him some run support as well. I would say, of all the things, and I'm curious if you agree with me on this, the most concerning thing or the most confusing and annoying thing watching this team from a day-to-day basis is it still feels like they're getting into a groove as to what is in the lineup every day aside from Michael, Bobby, Vinny, and Salvi. You know that those four guys are going to be in the lineup for the most part, but even Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione, who are these top prospects and have high expectations, it feels like, and I know that he's playing slightly more than just a platoon player would, but they still are like moderately platooning Jack Caglione. And I think the most annoying thing is if you're going to be bad, which they don't have plans of being bad, but at the current stage they are bad, be bad and develop the young guys. Don't be bad and try to moneyball platoon everything and put Lane Thomas in all these huge spots and bury Caglione and Jensen in the lineup when they've both had their bright spots. And if this team is going to be at its best either later this year or next year or the year after, when you have this young core of Michael, Bobby, Carter, and Cags together, they have to go through the lumps and they have to learn how to hit against left-handed pitching. It can't just be, oh, there's a lefty out there. Here's our right-handed corner outfielder to platoon them with.
Yeah, if the Royals get to the peak of their powers this year, if they play up to their ultimate ability, it's going to be with Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen on the field. It's not going to be with Lane Thomas out there and right. It's not going to be with Elias Diaz on the field behind the plate.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go out there. I 100% agree with your guys. I think two main things that have really frustrated me this year with the Royals, and number one is kind of an obvious one, is the pitching. I just looked up their team ERA. I mean, it's 4.54. I mean, this is a group that last year was like one of the best starting rotations in the Major League Baseball, one of the best relieving core in all of baseball, and like it was really expected to be a strength of this year's team. And like you just go out there, and then some of these nights, like these are supposed to be the good players on the team. These are supposed to be the contributors. These are supposed to be the guys that are kind of leading you to a potential division title, and they aren't getting it done. Like you think about Cole Reagans or like Noah Cameron last year, amazing year. This year, the early returns, they simply haven't been there, and I think we kind of see why the Royals necessarily he didn't make the team coming out of spring training last year. He kind of had to earn his way on due to some injuries and then just pitching well when he got to the majors. But I mean, now you're seeing maybe I don't want to say a sophomore slump because I think there's tremendous ability there, but you're kind of seeing maybe the league has learned a thing or two about Noah Cameron and the 5 different pitches that he throws. But then the second one that concerns me, and it hasn't necessarily been an issue the last couple weeks, but one thing that was just shocking to me when the Royals a couple weekends ago were playing that weekend series in New York at the Yankees, and Jack Caglione and Kyle Isbell ran into each other in the outfield. That's something that can, first of all, never happen on a Major League diamond, let alone happen 20-some-odd games into the season. And then the very next game, Isaac Collins and Michael Garcia have a little bit of a miscommunication, and the ball drops in there. I mean, those are truly the things that bad baseball teams do. Like, those are not things like that if you're going to go to the World Series, like those balls don't fall. Those balls get caught. You can't give teams extra outs at the Major League level. So, I know a lot of people obviously kind of want to jump on Quatrero, kind of get after him. And I think there have been some people in the media maybe defending him, like after the way the Royals made the playoffs in 2024. But when you're seeing players collide in the field, I think you got to say that a little bit, that's on coaching. Like, I mean, obviously, good teams don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how else to say it other than that, but that's a tough situation there for the Royals.
The bottom line they are going to be a bad team if they have the worst bullpen in baseball.
Yeah.
And they currently have the worst bullpen in baseball. That's like the most simple thing. I think that the starting pitching gets maybe a bad rap at times. They can't always be perfect every day.
Yeah.
It can't be a quality start every night. It was a quality start it felt like 60% of the time last year, and it wasn't enough. And that was because the offense was so bad. This year, the offense has been slightly better, but the bullpen has been so much worse that they've given away games that the starting pitching has kept them in. So the bullpen has to be better. The corner outfield still has to be better, more consistent. It's a lot of season left, though.
Yeah, a lot of season left.
And a huge week at Kauffman next week.
Yeah, hey, so go out there, get your butts in the seats. I think it's a great point talking about the bullpen. I mean, with Carlos Estevez leaving, getting injured and then not pitching since the second game in the season, now obviously was he ready to go? Who knows? We know he's a slow starter. Probably not. But the thing is, when he was out of that role as the closer, every slot in that Royals bullpen just got shifted, and it hasn't worked out. And a lot of their team was built with Carlos Estevez being the closer.
Yeah.
Hopefully when he comes back, he can pitch well, and that kind of slides everyone back in their spot, and things are back to normal. But we'll have to wait and see. The Royals right now 12-19, not playing good baseball, but starting a 3-game set at the Seattle Mariners. All right, we got 2 more topics we got to go through pretty quick. First one is the KC Mavericks. Now, it's not a guarantee, but it certainly is a possibility that the Mavericks could play potentially 2 playoff games at home with no fans. That's because they're in the Mountain Division finals, basically the Western Conference semifinals of the ECHL. The team that they're taking on, their games 1 and 2, the Mavericks are hosting. They'll be played at Cable Dahmer Arena. Then they go for 3 on the road potentially, and the best-of-7 series down in Allen, Texas, which is in the DFW area. Now the series comes back to Kansas City for a potential Game 6 and Game 7. Those are scheduled for May 19th, a Tuesday, and May 20th, a Wednesday. And at Cable Dahmer Arena that night, there are a pair of high school graduations.
Yeah.
So the Mavericks don't have a home for that night. They're going to be playing in the same building, but at Independence Community Ice, which is a closed sheet of ice, and there won't be fans there. So the Mavs, I reached out to them. I know Mayor Quentin Lucas put out a tweet saying, hey, we'd love to maybe see you at Kemper. We'd love to maybe see you at what was the other one he mentioned? Municipal.
Yeah.
I reached out to the Mavericks. Those sites are not a possibility because they don't have ice plants, and they also don't have the required safety things for both players and fans. So they won't be playing there. If they do play those games 6 and 7, it does look like they will be at the Independence Community Ice because they're high school graduations. Obviously an unfortunate situation because the Mavericks are the best team in the league. They have the best regular season in all the ECHL, and they are a dominant force. But
go sweep them.
Yeah, go sweep them. Just make sure it's not an issue. Wins game 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there you go. It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
So Gabe, one quick question for you here. Sporting KC in action tomorrow. National TV game hosting the Seattle Sounders at 1:30. Sporting is 1 win, 7 losses, 1 draw so far this year. Now the KC Current, it's not good for them. KC Current on the road tomorrow at North Carolina. The Current, 2 wins this year, 4 losses. They've already given up more goals and trailed for more minutes this year than they did all of last year. Who will turn it around first? The KC Current or Sporting Kansas City? And I think this is a very easy answer, but we'll see what you say.
It's the Current. It is the team.
It is.
It's the team that is underperforming, not the team that was a
shell of itself.
Hey, walking billboard. We are rebuilding.
Yep.
That's what Sporting KC is. I know that Rafa Wicki has admitted that it's probably been a tougher job than he expected, and that was probably a jarring thing for people to hear. But the Current are just flat out not meeting expectations, whereas Sporting is who we thought they were going to be.
No, that's the nail on the head. I think something that's very interesting is last weekend, the KC Current head coach was kind of asked if he's worried about his job, and it's 6 matches into his tenure there at the KC Current because, as I said, they've already lost more games, trailed for more minutes, and given up more goals than they did all of last year. 2-0-4 right now for the KC Current, but hopefully they can turn that around tomorrow when they take on the North Carolina Courage down in North Carolina. But that's a look at KC Sports tonight here on this Friday, May the 1st. We have Rookie Minicamp Day 2 tomorrow. Neil Jones and Katie Marr will be out there tomorrow, and we will have a full recap of that with all their interviews and all that stuff coming up tomorrow on KC Sports Tonight, 10:35 p.m. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.